Good morning to everyone. Good morning to see all portals live today at the same at the same time. And so it gives us more opportunity to go ahead and get into God's word. We're here in the community, whether you are a constant here or you are new. Thanks for dropping in into a space where we study the word of God, and we truly believe that we are better together, better with God, and better with one another. In 2026, we've been following the theme manifested miracles with this belief that God really does desire to work miracles in our lives. We've used the pattern of Mondays studying the miracle through the lens of God's character and seeing what God is teaching us about who He is. On Wednesdays, we do wellness work where we look at our own character. We understand that if there is a gap between what God has promised and what is being manifested, the error is not on God's side, the growth is on our side. And somebody said with me, I desire to grow. I desire to grow. I desire to experience what God has. And then on Fridays, we come back together and we pray the word, pray the promise, pray over ourselves. And we also have a prayer time for those who can't join us in the mornings. That's on Thursday evenings as well. So with all of that being said, this week we've been leaning into manna in the wilderness, the miracle of manna in the wilderness. And this meets me right where I am. And hopefully it does for some of you as well, for all of you who are listening, whether you're live or watching on the replay. This idea that trusting God is more than a notion. It is often easier said than done. And manna in the wilderness is one of those trust lessons about this miracle that comes, and it is a daily measurement, a daily portion, a daily rationing, which says then for those of us who desire to see the long term, the end goal, the big picture, trusting God day by day is the learning in this miracle. And some of you may be there if you are in transition as the children of Israel are, if you're curious about the next step, if you're wondering about direction and which way to go. The miracle of manna in the wilderness was this idea that God was not going to give them this long-term sustainable miracle that will just carry them from the beginning to the end, but that in fact he was rationing out and allowing them to exercise trust, daily trust, allowing them to exercise obedience, allowing them to really see that he is a God who provides each step of the way. And man, that is the growth. That is the space, y'all. Personally, again, where I am very much a visionary and a planner at the same time. I want to have this great idea, but I want to work it out. I want to kind of see where it's going. I want to know where provision is coming from. If I'm in a space of transition, I want to plan. Anybody else say, I want to plan, I want to see it. So this idea that the miracle that God gives is not to bring us out of the curiosity, to not bring us out of the uncertainty, but actually to walk us through it day by day. And maybe that's the reason that he would have you join on today or catch it on the scroll as you're passing and stop for a moment, is to remind us that not only is he the God of the long term, he is the God of the day by day. Will somebody meet me in the comments and say day by day, step by step? And so we're going to go ahead and deep dive into this miracle today, again, through the lens of wellness work on ourselves. I'll remind us of what we learned about God's character on Monday, but then hopefully help us to make the connection between then, what do I need to see about myself? So the first thing that we had as we looked at the manna in the wilderness miracle is that God is a provider. God is a provider. On the flip side of it, it allows us to examine if we have to confront survival anxiety. Let's hear that one on today. God is a provider. So in that miracle, as the children of Israel are coming out of Egypt and finally getting to experience their freedom, there's a space, as we remember, where they ran out during the night, escaped the death angel, all things that, and they were given the instructions to only pack what was necessary, like only what they could carry on their back. So there is undeniably this point where they run out of food. They've not packed food for the whole journey, especially for the duration of time that is added because of their disobedience, because of their lagging, because of their walking in circles. They run out of food. They began to complain. So that is a nugget all by itself. Somebody may need to look at how do we move when part of the delay is on us. Like we love to say delay, but not deny. But do we really lean in and examine when the delay is not because of God, it is because of us? That's a whole nother segue. So I'm gonna stay right here. So what happens is they begin to complain, and God says, I am going to provide. How does he provide? He allows quail to come by night. So meat comes in the evening, and manna rains down from heaven. That's where we get bread of heaven, right? Manna rains down from heaven each morning. But God explicitly says, do not try to store up any. He says, don't put any in no storage, don't get no coolers, don't put in no refrigerator. In our vernacular, like, no, you only get today's portion. Will somebody say with me, today? God says that you get today's portion. He allows them to experience today's portion. And in real time, if we were to allow ourselves to stand in those shoes, many of us would concur. Yeah, that would be me. I would eat my portion, but I would be trying to figure out, but what about tomorrow? What about the next day? What about my kids, my spouse, my grandchildren, whatever it is that I may be responsible for? What about that? What about that? And this idea then that God is a provider, and maybe part of our wellness work is confronting survival active anxiety. Survival anxiety. What is that? It is the sense that although things may feel okay today, what's going to happen tomorrow? It's this feeling of like we're waiting on, what do we say? Waiting on the shoe to drop, waiting on the bad to happen. It's those of us who get a bit anxious if everything seems to be working out too good. Like the bad part, the drama part, we almost anticipate it. We almost will it into our lives. Here is a real honest, like flatliner type of assessment that each of us can do for ourselves. And listen, nobody knows what you're processing in your own private homes and your own private addresses, but it is literally processing when everything is going well. What are some of my first thoughts? Like, you be honest with you about that. When everything in my life seems like it's going pretty good, what are some of my thoughts? Do I find myself in exhilarating joy? Do I find myself resting in peace? Or do I find myself kind of getting nervous, wondering? And there's no judgment there. It allows us to see where we really are, what our experiences have taught us, and how that then carries over into our relationship with the Lord. So many of us may find ourselves when there's peace throughout the land, and somebody said, "Honey, I've not had that yet." I'm going to have to tell you when have that, then I pray is that where there's peace in your finances, peace in your relationships, peace in your body, in your health, peace in your mind, like peace throughout the land. And I pray that you have that in such a way that it allows you to really examine, have my life experiences taught me to expect and thus call in the worst? Am I really learning how to confront survival activity and to trust that God is really with me? And whether He gives me the long-term plan or He gives me day by day, I'm learning how to walk with Him. We don't just want provision, is often what it looks like. We want security in advance, right? We don't just want the resources. We want to have something in advance so that we don't have to worry about the next day. But in the manna in the wilderness, God allows them to experience and begin to grow in trusting Him daily. Will somebody say, "Help me, Lord. I want to trust you. I want to trust you daily." In our real life experiences, it can look like watching grocery prices go up. And although you have food for today, you're already worried about how you're going to get food for. It's navigating the layoffs or unstable contracts. Even though you have something right now, you're focused very much on what's next. It's praying about tuition while being enrolled in school right now. It's managing a diagnosis, but wondering about the long-term cost. It's like this point where you're existing right here, but your mindset and your faith, it's always up there. It's when this idea that when our needs are met, anxiety is still present. And listen, God is a God who's gracious enough to allow us to stand in that dichotomy and that mixed truth and tell Him both, God, my needs are met, but I still get a little bit anxious about what's going to happen in my future. I know, God, that you've taken care of this, but I can't help seemingly about worrying about that. God is able to handle that whole truth, to allow us to do that type of wellness work and to bring that to Him, to bring that to him, this idea that my bills can be paid and food can be present, and there's strength that I have in my body for today. The way that we begin to reframe and coach and teach ourselves to process is to begin to acknowledge that more, that God is actively providing. Will somebody say that with me? God is actively providing. What does that cause us to examine in our thoughts? It's not just honoring the God who will, but the God who is. And somebody said with me right now, let me repeat that again for some who are just scooting into the Bible study. It's learning not just to honor the God who will. So much of our church culture highlights and honors the God who will. We say, God will work it out. Yes, he will. God will turn it around. Yes, he will. God will deliver. Yes, he will. We have a culture that often emphasizes and causes us to even cultivate our faith by focusing on the God who will. It's making a cognizant choice to not only honor the God who will, but the God who is. Somebody say God is. Not just that God will provide. Somebody say God is. God is providing. Not just that God will heal. God is healing. It's honoring the God who not only will, but the God who is. Will you say that with me again? God is. And sometimes we have to remind ourselves, even when we can't see it or we're so accustomed to it, we take it for granted. He is not only the God who will, he is the God who is. We do not desire to overlook the God who is. And ironically, here's what happens. The more we cultivate and focus, intentionally do the wellness work to acknowledge the God who is, it actually strengthens us to believe in the God who will. It gives us a very present track record of what God is doing. What is God doing? Let me ask somebody to drop that in the comments for even right now. God is not the God that you're believing for, but the God who will, and the God who will, but the God who is. What is God actually doing for you real time right now? Somebody go ahead and drop yours in the comments. Real time right now. What is God doing? Is God protecting your home? Is God sustaining your peace? Is God giving you breath in your bodies? Obviously in mine, right? I'm on here talking. Is God healing your body? Obviously with me, y'all screw with the tissue, but God is healing. God is. What is God actively doing? Yes, we honor the God who will, but we also celebrate the God who is. God is providing. God is sustaining. God is healing. God is restoring. God is uplifting. God is delivering. God is. That is the intentional work of celebrating. I see someone else saying, God is healing. Hey, Mary Carey, God is healing. Yes, he is. God is directing. Someone else, God is teaching. Very good, Kim. God is teaching more of his word. God is directing. God is giving next steps. God is. So we not only honor the God who will, we honor the God who is. God is, what did that one? See, God is providing. Yes, he is. Yes, he is. God is providing. Hey, Deborah, God is providing and keeping me in perfect peace. God is. So yes, we do. We celebrate the God who will, but we also celebrate the God who is. And when our anxiety or when our God is keeping, yes, he is. When anxiety, I don't want to call it ours, when anxiety or discouragement or feeling overwhelmed tries to come upon us because we're so busy thinking about the future, a present, like cognizant tool that we can do is say, whoa, 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 God is. And we begin to talk to ourselves about what God is doing. And if he is the same God today, yesterday, and forever, the God who is strengthens us for the things that we face for tomorrow. Let's keep moving. Number two, we were reminded from this miracle that God is dependable. As I said earlier, God allowed that quail, that meat to come every evening, but he also allowed that manna to come every morning, and he didn't waver. The folk didn't have to get up and go look around and see if God had did what he said. It was there. It was done. Say, God did it. It was done and done. That's how it happened. It was done and it was done. God is dependable. We must learn daily trust. Man, oh man, oh man. I'm telling y'all, Deborah, I'm telling you with my whole heart, I would have wanted God to give me my rationing for the whole week so I can store it and I can put it in Tupperware. And I know I'm not the only one, so I could label it so I can know what is, so I could just, that could be one thing off of my checklist, my mental checklist. It could be done. God did not do that. He said, in fact, if you try to do that, I'm going to let it spoil. It's not going to sustain you. He was teaching them daily trust. It is what it looked like in real time to get up each morning and to trust that today he's going to give me my daily bread. See, a lot of things we say, it's almost like cliche. We say daily bread, honey, but we've really not had to process living like that. It's like most of us, when we go to the gas tank, if resources allow, we're going to get more gas than what we need to make it from point A to point B. We're going to get as much as our resources would allow. One, because we don't want to keep stopping, but two, we don't want to have to think through that every time we're going somewhere. Can you imagine every morning getting up to go to work and you got to stop and get today's portion of the gasoline? Well, in this space, that's what it was like. I got to get up each morning and get today's portion of the manna, get today's portion of the meat. And I got to trust that every day when I get up, it's going to be out there. God is dependable. We prefer guarantees, contracts, timelines, storage, all of the things. But God offers consistency without visibility. See, the storage, the written contract, all of that stuff, it gives me visible consistency. It gives me something that I can count on. And this nugget just dropped for me, even for those of you who know that you have an entrepreneurial calling on your life. Sometimes that walk by faith that doesn't allow you to experience this dependable paycheck every 2 weeks is your hindrance. But God can offer consistency without full visibility. God can offer this stability in our lives, and it's off of simply his word. It's off of a promise that he made and learning how to trust that promise. Some of you are in that space right now where all you got is a word. But guess what? When God speaks his word is consistency. God spoke that the sun would be planted in the sky to give light, to give heat, to give all of those things millennials ago. And guess what? Though that word is still holding the sun consistently to this day. God has given us his word. So we get to really look at ourselves and examine, do we have daily trust? Have any of you ever been waiting on like an email to come to confirm something, and you find yourself refreshing that email over and over and over again, trying to see if it's come through yet? Are you checking your bank accounts daily? Are you're constantly going between your invoices and your approvals and your funding cycles, or you're feeling unstable when it comes to a long-term plan? That growth in trying to figure everything out and instead shifting and moving forward to trusting God daily, that is the wellness work. That is the work. Trust God, trusting God in daily increments, y'all. Man, oh man, trusting God in daily increments, not in these hypothetical failures. Many of us default to thinking it's not going to work out. We've got to begin to learn to trust God in the daily increments. And I'm talking to myself, when stuff don't feel like it's moving right, I can often default to then what's wrong? What's the issue? What's the problem? Versus God is just giving me what I need for today. God's consistency may or may not remove our uncertainty, but it can sustain us through it. What does this look like? I don't know how, but I trust him. Like in real time, what does it look like? I don't know how. I don't know how God's going to take care of Thursday, but I trust him. I don't know how God's going to sustain me on Friday, but I trust him. I don't know what God's going to do the rest of this year, but I trust him. It's shaping our minds to really begin to say, I trust him. We don't have to ignore the spaces where we may feel anxious or worried, but we can declare in the midst of it, I trust him. And sometimes we continue to speak it until we actually feel it. So I invite any of us who desire to do so to go ahead and say with your mouths or to add it to the comments, I trust him. Beginning to practice that. Number three, The miracle reminded us and revealed to us about God's character is that God is all sufficient. God said for each family to gather what they needed. At the same time, he said for all families to gather what they needed. It was not rotations. It was not, now you go first, and then Deborah, we're gonna see if anything's left over. It was not Alice. Okay, Alice, since your name start with A, you in the first group, and then we're gonna see if we make it all the way down to Mary Carey's group in the M's. It was not that. God is all sufficient. So what do we have to confront? Comparison and pressure. This idea that we're behind, or God did it for her, so maybe it won't work out for me, or I'm going to forever be the one clapping for other people's blessings. We must confront where there's comparison and there's pressure, and it exposes that sometimes we don't believe that God has enough. We don't believe that God has enough for others and us too. And how does that show up? When envy or jealousy or covetousness or disgruntledness begins to rise up in our spirits, we may not even say it. Our bitterness, honey, we just can't even go. We can't even go to no more bridal showers. We can't go to no more baby showers. We don't order nothing for the people's wedding. We don't put no heart on their posts. Like, you can examine yourself. And again, no judgment. Don't nobody see how we act or don't act, but we know. We know how we are responding when God is providing for everybody and each body. We know whether we run out there. There's this meme that I love that I saw, well, I should say recently, but a few weeks back on TikTok, and the gist of it was the gentleman said, I looked in your cup to see if you had enough. Something of that messaging. I looked in your cup to see if you had enough. You looked in my cup to see if I had more. And that's the difference. I say that to bring it to this point. This idea that for some of us, we want to make sure that you have a portion. Others of us are checking to make sure that we don't have less or you don't have more. And that reveals what's happening on the inside of us. When we see other people traveling or expanding or upgrading their lifestyles, when we feel as if we're falling behind financially or professionally, when we see someone else's prayer requests being answered, do we feel this sense of bitterness or regret or disappointment? We have to redefine enough based on God's provision. Not social comparison. God is not running out. He's not falling short. He's not choosing between. He's a God who has enough for all families and each family. God is my portion. Will someone say that with me? God is my portion. That's the grounding truth. God is my portion. God is enough. Somebody want to drop that in the notes. God is enough. Number 4, we're going to keep moving so I can make it through our 5 things. Number 4, this was a huge one. It's something that each of us gets an invitation to work on. We discovered again that God is orderly. We remember how God gave those explicit instructions about what to do throughout the weekdays. And then on the 6th day, how he told them, now this day, you go ahead and you get enough for 2 days, because tomorrow on the 7th day, the Sabbath, I want y'all to rest. I want y'all to remember that I'm holy. I want you to commune with me and commune with one another. God was very explicit in this miracle. He gave direct instructions and he expected them to obey. God is orderly, y'all. And we must embrace rhythm over burnout, rhythm over hustle. What do I mean by rhythm? When we study Genesis chapter 1 and study many of the things that God did, God was a God of discipline. He was a God of repetition. He was a God of good habits. He was a God of honoring what he had put into place, whether he felt like it or not, we'll never know. Because it just simply said, and God said, and God did, and God said it was good, right? He had this regular way of doing something. He had a rhythm. Everybody say rhythm. God had a rhythm. He had a systematic way of approaching things. Many of us can live very helter-skelter. We can live chaotic, full of confusion, just kind of rumbling and rambling. God desires that we be orderly, that we mirror his ways. And so with that being said, he would have a rhythm to how he moved, and he would allow them to gather that quail in the evening, that manna the next day, to rest during the night. It was almost like he was releasing them from striving and just welcoming them to trust, to put their efforts into trusting him. But how many of us will override that? I know I do. I actually said that to a friend the other day. Like, I know it's a season of recalibration. Some of you are in your season of recalibration. Some of you are in your seasons of rest, and you really don't even know how to do it. So with that empty time, you'll go and take on another job. You'll work multiple roles without rest. You'll have burnout disguised as managing everybody else's responsibility. You'll feel guilty for slowing down. Those are signs. You live in a constant urgency, always solving. You neglect rest because life is too demanding, and that is not God's desire. He invites us to repeatedly understand that he is a part of our provision. He's a part of our provision, even if it's daily, even if it's not big and long term like we would like to see it. He's a part of our provision, and he invites us to really understand that he did not design us or require for us to live in exhaustion to get provision. He did not. He did not say we have to hustle until we just can't breathe, or we got to do this, that, and the other. He invites us to trust him for daily provision, to do our part, but to really examine what are we assuming as our parts. It is not God's desire that to get to provision, you live exhausted. Will somebody receive that on today? Exhaustion is not your portion. That is not God's desire for your life. What is your portion? Rhythm and rest. Rhythm that includes rest. Yes, faith without works is dead, but faith without rest is worry. Somebody hear me on this morning. Faith without works is indeed dead, but faith without rest, it's worry. God desires that you rest. God desires that you embrace rhythm, and a part of that rhythm is rest. Lastly, God is formative. If you're tracking with me so far, go ahead and lean on that like or love button as we make our way to the last one for today. God is formative. God is formative. Like, God is always forming us. He is working on us. Listen, again, I said this on Monday. God easily could have given them the provision for the whole week. He could have given them to them for the whole month. He could have figured out however he wanted to, how to give them whatever they needed, and they don't have to trust him for that day by day. He could have. So we understand then that God was very intentional in making it be a day by day thing. Why? Because the miracle is not the big thing for God. God can work whatever kind of miracle. He is the miracle worker. He is. God is working on us. Somebody say, God is working on me. God is forming me. That's what's really happening here. The miracle is not so much the manna coming from heaven or the meat falling over the grounds in the evening. The miracle is us really learning how to pull down stinking thinking and how to really trust God day by day. That's a miracle, honey. That right there, not worrying, not being all up anxious or depressed or discouraged, but really believing that God took care of me today, and God's going to take care of me tomorrow. So today I'm going to live right here and today. When I think about that scripture that says, worry not about tomorrow, this miracle made it that much more real. What this exposes in us is, do we want to have outcomes over transformation? Would we rather God just go ahead and give us the provision for the whole month instead of working and really seeing, do I trust him daily? Do I trust him day to day? Many of us prefer outcomes without transformation, but there is a remnant. There's a remnant of us who say, no, transform me, Lord. I don't want to be in a transactional relationship with you. I want to be in a relational relationship with you where I'm learning your ways and seeing your character and becoming more like you. Again, somebody say, transform me, Lord. And so then here is this point. God is not just in the moment, in this manna in the wilderness moment, feeding the people. God is forming people. Y'all catch that? God in that moment is not just feeding the people. God is forming the people. And maybe you, like myself, I lift my hands in surrenderance to the Lord and I say, form me, Lord. Transform me, Lord. Allow me to see where I need to be stretched and where I need to grow, where I need to be more flexible, where I need to be stronger, where I need to hold my peace, and where I need to speak up. Teach me and make me into who you would have me be. That is what the miracle reveals. Manna in the wilderness is not so much about the bread coming from heaven so that the people can be fed. It is more about God forming the people and teaching them how to trust him daily. If you got your one good nugget on today, go ahead and lean on that like or love button, y'all. It's time to get on up out of here. Again, we have prayer tomorrow night on our YouTube channel, Dr. Gina Lynn. For those of you who desire to join from the other platforms, that's where we are. If you want to, you can get you a permanent home over there too. So whatever happened with these social media platforms, we'll be ready to go. And then we'll meet on Friday morning at 6 a.m. for prayer. I'll see you right there. As always, I honor the greatness that's on the inside of you. Y'all take care.